Hello, welcome to The Conversation on News Central Television. This is a program where we bring you up to speed with all the political happenings on the African continent. I am Gbenga Aborowa.
And I am Rita Omodia. Today on The Conversation, we will begin in Nigeria, where state governors have been receiving backlash. Now, ours after the Minister of State for Budget and National Planning, claimed that blamed state governors for the rate of poverty in the country. President Muhammad Buhari has also accused them of diverting funds meant for local council development in the country.
The moment of truth is fast approaching for President Cyril Ramaphosa over his indictment at the Pala Pala farm scandal. Investigations into the case have reached a tipping point after the panel of experts looking into the matter officially handed over its report this week. More indications President Cyril Ramaphosa is likely to resign. In the face of damning allegations, what will be his next line of action? We'll look into that in detail during the course of our program. Interesting developments across the continent. And I like our first topic. There's 774 local governments in Nigeria that get allocation. Why is this coming now? And why has the spotlight not been on governors? Because the president's office is one of several, if not hundreds or thousands of elected positions, but we're always focused in it, you know. If you don't have light, it's the president. If your gutter if there's flood on your street, it's the president. And I'm sure the state governors are happy to have the spotlight away from that, but it's a conversation we need to have.
Actually, the spotlight is not away from there. The spotlight is on them because accusations are put on the state governors and saying that they are the ones diverting funds. So the federal government, from the federation accounts, they remove money from it.
Until now. I mean, this is coming a penultimate year before the president departs. He would have completed his second term next year. This is conversation.
Well, it's to be expected. Elections are next year, so we'll have lots of things unraveling, talking about corruption, security, which the government said that they will tackle by December. So we'll definitely have lots of things coming up, especially as Nigeria gears into the electioneering period. And in South Africa, we've been dealing with a lot of issues in South Africa, from Chris Hani, Jacob Zuma, and now the president is back in the eye of the storm.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that conversation. But first, let's begin in Nigeria, where Nigeria's President Muhammad Buhari has openly accused state governors of misappropriating funds meant for the local government councils in their respective states. Speaking at an event at the State House in Abuja, the president expressed concerns over what he described as governors' unfair treatment of the administration at the local government level, citing the personal experience involving an unnamed governor. The president alluded to fraudulent acts by some governors in the distribution of funds intended for the management of local councils.
I wonder who the unnamed governor is. Well, the president also said some governors collect money on behalf of council areas and remit only half of such allotment to the council chairpersons. He also accused the governors of making the council bosses sign undertakings for money not received and agreeing to have received the full allocation. According to Buhari, the actions portrayed the sort of corrupt practices that is now symptomatic to Nigeria in dispensing resources meant for local council administrations, thereby undermining development. And now joining us live to discuss all of this, we have Olufemi Lawson, Executive Director, Center for Public Accountability, joining us from Lagos, Nigeria. We also have Segun, Sopitan, Chairman, Accountability, Candor and Transparency Network, a CSO for Governance, also joining us from Lagos, Nigeria. Gentlemen, welcome to the conversation.
Good evening.
So I'll begin with you, Olufemi. Now, it's 7 years down the line. The president is once again talking about corruption, just like he did when he was first inaugurated for the first time. But this time, he's revealing how monies from the federal government to the state governments are pilfered before getting to the local government. Now, I want you to clearly state it for our viewers. How deeply rooted is the level of corruption in Nigeria?
But thank you, and good evening once again for this opportunity. And I think for every 10 cases of corruption in Nigeria, for every 10 cases of injustice against the people of Nigeria, you must understand that at least 7 or 8 of it are rooted in the constitution of Nigeria. Some of those things that have become recklessness on the part of government in Nigeria today are things that are encouraged by the Constitution of Nigeria. And that is why oftentimes we have continued to demand for a new constitution for this country. Let me give you an instance on this subject matter. What the governors are doing today, that the president just accused them of doing, if you go deeper into it, you realize that the governors are actually exploiting the Nigerian constitution to perpetrate what the president is raising this alarm about. And it is not new. And I don't think it is the first time the president is realizing this in 7 years, that governors are taking money belonging to another chair of government. But the truth is that the Constitution of Nigeria, particularly the Section 162 of the Constitution you have read from 5 to now or thereabout, has given that window of opportunity for the governors to exploit the local government with the creation of that joint state and local government account. The joint state and local government account is a creation of the 1999 Constitution. And when you have such account existing, constitutionally created, it becomes an automatic avenue for the governors to exploit the local government in Nigeria. That is why today the local governments have become practically appendages of the governor's office. There's hardly any local government that is actually independent in Nigeria, irrespective of how it is formulated, be it through election or through appointment, that is the case in most of the local governments in Nigeria. So until we go back to the root cause of it, what has given the governors this power? What has given them this, this capacity to continually exploit the local government in the name of joint, state and local government account? Then it will end up as another series of lamentation that the president is doing. And one would have expected that if President Buhari is this concerned, the last 7 years should have been enough for him to have sponsored an executive bill to expunge this very fraudulent, section of the Constitution that has given that so much power to the governors to turn the local government, to an appendage of their offices, and the illegal exploitation of the local government continues.
Okay, thank you, Femi. I'd like to bring in Segun Sopitan. Segun, there are 774 local governments in Nigeria, and it's the closest arm of government to the people. So how important is local government administration, and what is your take on this grand theft that happens at local government as alleged by the president? There's some that say, if we give them their full allocation, they're still going to share it, because that's what they do at the end of the month. They're getting half of it and they're sharing it. So what do you make of this? And do you go with that line of argument that beyond the governors, the local government themselves are corrupt?
Okay, thank you. So the first part of your question, how important is the local government as a tier of government in Nigeria? And I think that this question is very critical. It's something that we as civil society owe the public the duty of education and trying to direct the public conversation and the public consciousness away from the excessive concentration on the federal government and down to the subnational government. I think the argument has been made very strenuously, repeatedly across several platforms by several people, different people, that the local government is the government that is closest to the people. The local government chairman's office is probably just one bus ride or one Okada ride or whatever your means of transportation in your locality is, away from where you live. So we have access to this local government chairman, who are the chief executives of this tier of government, right? Why do we focus our energies and our attention so almost in a fixated manner on the federal government, on the president and on the National Assembly, when indeed a lot of the things that touch us the most closely happen right at the local government, which is very close to us? So this tier of government is very important, very critical. And I think that if we're able to get it right in terms of the leadership recruitment at that tier, ensure that quality people, people like you and I, people like the four of us that are on this conversation, can emerge as local government chairmen, I think that we will witness a significant leap ahead in terms of development indicators in Nigeria, right? So now, having said that, it is therefore then not a wonder that the lack of development that we witness is so heavy, given the travesty and the injustice that is being done by the state governors to the local government system in this country. The state governors have annexed the local government administration, have turned them into either agencies or ministries within their state government, which is not in line with what the Constitution provides. The Constitution is very clear about the roles of the local government. The Constitution is very clear about how local government chairmen ought to be appointed, in quotes, by election conducted by state electoral commissions. But you find that governors, as you know, they simply do whatever they want to do. They conduct elections when they want, you know, and those elections are even so brazenly rigged and so brazenly poorly conducted that the public is not even interested in it, right? So this needs to be addressed. Now, when we get this right, then we can focus our attention on the issue of how, you know, the funds meant for the local government are used by the state governors. Now, let me say this. I think that perhaps the problem with, you know, this issue of local government administration and the use of the funds that are meant for them is not necessarily a constitutional problem. It's not, you know, I think the Constitution is clear enough with regards to what's supposed to happen. I think what we have here is a problem of impunity, is the fact that our state governors brazenly breach the Constitution, yet nothing happens. Not only has the Constitution made the role of the local government clear, not only has it made the election into local government offices clear, the federal government has now issued an executive order that has been supported by the National Assembly and that has been backed by several court judgments, including judgments of the Supreme Court on the independence of the local government. And yet our state governors, who are in truth emperors in their empires, who are untouchable and who simply do whatever they want to do, they've simply continued to ignore these things, and they've continued to run the local government as departments and agencies in their government. You know, so I think that Nigerians need to wake up to this injustice that is going on and speak against it. You know, unfortunately, like I said earlier, we focus our energies and our attention on the president and on federal government and on the federal agencies, you know, and all of that, and we forget that a lot is happening. I mean, come on, think about it. 20% of the revenues of government, or 20% of revenue allocation, goes to the local government. You know, 20%. That's a lot of money. Imagine what can be done in terms of development.
All right, Segun, sorry to butt in here, but I want more clarity on that. Now, when you talk about funds for the local government and this issue of corruption, can we truly put all the accusing fingers on the state government? Because at some point we see a sharing of the funds even within the local government and the state government. So can we clearly, or just only put the fingers at the doorsteps of the state governors?
Absolutely. So the second part of this debate and the second part of the things that needs to happen, the first part is for us to hold our governors accountable and ensure that they allow those funds to go to where they're meant to go. The second part of it is that there are provisions for accountability for local government administration. There are provisions for accountability for state government administration. There are provisions for accountability for the federal government itself. A lot of these provisions are not adhered to. So now the onus is on us as Nigerians to fight for those accountability mechanisms to be fully implemented. For example, what is the role of the State Auditor General as far as the local government? Even the local government itself is supposed to have an Auditor General office or function of some sort. We need to make sure that the funds that go to local government is not seen as the private funds of local government chairmen that they use to buy cars and, you know, send their girlfriends to Dubai. That these funds are used to develop the local government and to develop the people and to, you know, to bring development to the people that they are governing. You know, until we do that, then, you know, we're going to be talking about this corruption issue consistently, and, you know, it cuts across from state to, you know, local government, state government, and to the federal government anyway.
Now, Olufemi, according to the 2021 Corruption Perception Index reported by Transparency International, Nigeria is the 154th least corrupt nation out of 180 on that list. Now, looking at local government corruption, what impact does it have on development of the country? And looking at a utopian situation where everything works perfectly, can you just walk us through the responsibilities and duties of a properly functioning local government?
Well, you see, the most unfortunate thing is that I always want to, take us back to the last 7 years, because when the current administration was coming up on board in 2015, it came with a lot of promises. Nigerians had a lot of hope, especially when you talk about the issue of corruption. One of the cardinal focus of the administration, as promised, was that it was going to tackle corruption headlong, considering the pedigree of the president, who has been known, as somebody who is anti-corruption, and Nigerians had expected that corruption would be a thing of the past. But today, it is very unfortunate that not only, has corruption become more, endemic than it was in 2015. It is such that it has, badly dealt with us as a nation by what you could see, from various ratings, from Transparency International and every other local and international organizations that has rated the current time as one of the worst for us as a country when you talk about corruption. And this is no doubt has impacted negatively a lot on governance and the welfare of the Nigerian people. Because if you look at how funds belonging to the people, which have been given to the state government, the local government to administer, have been arbitrarily, mismanaged in the last couple of years, then you come to realize how much money has been able to make poverty more endemic in the life of Nigerians. And that is why today, over 163 million of our population are, facing multidimensional poverty because government is no longer delivering on its mandates. The local government have become practically salary-paying offices for local government chairmen who don't embark on their basic primary responsibilities, the primary health care, services that is supposed to be the job of the local government, primary education, some basic, trunk C road, local infrastructures that the local government should be doing to, make life more abundant for the people who are no longer there. And the death of corruption in the system has entrenched, poverty to the extent that the average Nigerian today is poor in practical reality. And no amount of lamentation by the president without practical action can actually address the impact of this corruption by the state government and the local government. And of course, the federal government has its own share of this issue of corruption. But you look at a lot of ministers in the cabinet today, a lot of appointees of the federal government, of the president today, are having one corruption issue or the other from various prestataries to talk about the MASA, MPA, various ministries, people governing as if there is no president to coordinate and direct them. And this has made corruption to become an issue that has now made more of our people to be poorer than they were in 2015. And this may not easily change until we begin to address the question of the monumental corruption that has become an institution under the current administration in the last 7 years. We may not be having any solution to the menace of poverty that's really confronting us.
All right, thank you so much, Femi. And I'm going to take Segun on that. I mean, when the president made the statement, he said from personal experience, and he clearly narrated how this money is being pilfered. So what exactly, in your own take, what has the president been doing concerning the issue of corruption, both at the state government level and the local government level? Because it seems he really knows what is going on. Have any perpetrators been caught? What exactly can you say that the president has done to deal in depthly with the issue of corruption?
That's a very difficult question to answer, Rita. Because it's been 7 years of this administration, and if we cast our minds back to when, first of all, the elections itself, and you remember the sense of hope, the wave of expectations that followed this president into office, based on his antecedents. People thought, oh, corruption is finished in this country, it's dead. But, and then 6 months into his ascension into office, there was this issue of body language, and you could actually see that a lot of public officials kind of were a bit wary, not knowing what to come. But it became very obvious very quickly that it was going to be business as usual. And like my colleague here has said, if anything, corruption has gotten worse. So if you ask me what the president has done, yes, there has been some measures, some systemic measures, for example, the attempt to implement the TSA effectively and properly, fully. At the earlier stages of this administration, I think there was some success in that regard. I'm not very, very sure that success has been sustained. I have some personal experiences in dealing with some government agencies at that time and now. And I know that it's much easier now for government agencies to use revenues that they collect in the course of their work, in the course of their operations, directly, instead of sending it first, into the federation account, into the TSA. So there have been some efforts by the government, no doubt. We have to be careful not to have a single story perspective on these issues. However, I don't think enough has been done. And I think that, in fact, if you really look at things in a very dispassionate manner, the president, by his conduct, the president by his utterances, the president by some of things like appointments, and all of that, has indeed allowed corruption to bludgeon and to expand. When you say corruption, we have to remember that we're not talking of financial corruption alone. Corruption, by definition, can be very, very wide. And when you do not do what you say you will do, when you ignore the things that you ought to do, and so on and so forth, those things can also be termed as corruption. And I think that it's clear that this president has left a lot to be desired in terms of stamping down on corruption around him. Officials of his administration that have been caught with their hands in the cookie jar and that nothing has happened to. And I can give a simple example, the example of this former secretary to the government of the federation who was suspended from office, and because of some sort of contract inflation and all of that with regards to the Northeast development issues. And today, this gentleman is not only walking free, he is in fact trying to determine who is going to be our next president. And these are people that served under this president. So I don't think the president has done enough. They've made some efforts. We have to be fair. There's been some efforts, but it's nowhere near enough. If corruption is going to be, stopped in its track in this country, whoever is going to do it must be very resolute and must lead by example.
So there's definitely a lot to be done when it comes to addressing the issue of corruption in Nigeria. I'd like to say a big thank you to you, gentlemen. Olufemi Lawson, Executive Director, Center for Public Accountability, and Segun Sopitan, Chairman, Accountability, Candor and Transparency Network, a civil society organization. Thank you very much for your contributions to the conversation.
My pleasure.
You're watching The Conversation in News Central Television. We'll go on a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be looking at the political developments in South Africa, where President Ramaphosa is likely to resign or not over his farm scandal. We'll bring you details of that and more when we return.